Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here this evening at the opening of the exhibition of Professor John Eveleigh, and this is on two counts. First of all, because the venue is the town hall. Secondly, because we're here to celebrate the work of a great artist. Now, neither is more important than the other. As far as I'm concerned, they're both top-notch. Now, dwelling a bit on the venue, when we bought the building 2 years ago, we, the councillors, had a very clear vision of what we wanted it to be used for. As a home for the town council, from where we could carry out our activities to best serve the people of Folkestone, but more importantly, to be used as a focal point for the community and by the community. Since the opening in January 2013, the town hall has housed several exhibitions, works by school children, and an arts and crafts market, amongst other things, and will continue to do so in the future. For this, thanks are due to the members of staff who helped to organize these events, Rebecca McCutcheon being one of them. She's the heritage officer, and she's perhaps the most involved of the staff, I would say. So we thank her, but thanks are also due to those who are the driving force behind the events. Things don't just happen, you have to make them happen. And the person who made tonight happen is Jackie Parsons. We had lunch last July, and very nice it was too, but that's when she told me about her intention. That intention has now turned into reality. It has taken a lot of her time and energy, but she has brought it to fruition through sheer determination and conviction. And dogged determination, to quote her. For this, Jackie, we thank you and applaud you. Well done. Turning now to the artist, Professor John Eveleigh. Last week, I had the privilege of meeting him and his charming and supporting family for the first time, and that was in the comfort of his home. This has given me more of an insight into the character of the man himself, and I was absolutely amazed by the complexity of his character and his work. Most artists can be recognized by the style in which they paint. But I can honestly say that he's as versatile as he is prolific. Whether it's charcoal, oil, watercolors, portrait, landscape, or still life, each item delights in its own unique way, as you will see for yourselves in a few minutes. That's all I'm going to say about Professor Eveleigh. As the guest speaker, David Haste, will tell you more about his accomplishments, and he will do it far more eloquently than I can.
Good evening, everybody, and what a joy to be in this wonderful exhibition. And it's very, very special and heightened in its speciality by being and sharing the evening with the artist, John Eveleigh, and with Gretel and with the rest of the family. That's a really special honour for us all, but also for me. I've been a close friend of John for some time, and as two artists we have sat together many, many times to talk about all the things artists talk about, which I won't go into too much. Anyway, enough to say that on behalf of the family and John, just really extending the gratitude that's already been expressed towards Rebecca and to Jackie, and to thank them for making it all possible. It's a lovely show, and I hope you all enjoy it. Those of you who know John will know him through his art and through his personal friendship, and you'll know just how special this exhibition is. But I really want to pronounce, if I can, through those doors to the town of Folkestone. It's about time you woke up and acknowledged this great artist in your presence. I'm not talking to you, dear friends, I'm talking to the world out there in Folkestone, because I think what John has achieved over a lifetime and a career as an artist and many other things which I'm going into is something that Folkestone needs to acknowledge and to really praise up. So on the basis of that, I want to be able to tell you a little bit of why I think it's such a special event for you as friends and for Folkestone as a town. Now, over this very, very long career that John's had in the visual arts, he has embodied 3 quite specific vocations. These are vocations which are universal in character. You'll recognize them when I tell you, but I think it's those that I really want to focus in so that we get a full 3-dimensional view of this remarkable man. And I'm distinguishing his professional achievements in these terms. John, the artist. John, the teacher. And John, the initiator. I was going on to say John the Baptist, but I thought that might be pushing on that. So we'll stick with those 3. And it's important for us to get this nice rounded picture of John. And the artist, those of you who are artists or know artists know that they occupy a very lonely space. It's the artist and the images that he's making. And you're on your own, and it's a private space, and even when the agony is there, it's the most wonderful place to be. The artist. The teacher, we're now into a more broader public domain. Articulate, enthusiastic, all of those things. And in particular, and you'll recognize this in the man I'm talking about, inspirational, to an individual who may not have very much talent, but boy, do they soak it up. To a group, to a class, to a school. That's the dimension of the teacher. And it's a space in which you have great days in which to share your love of a subject. That's a privilege. And the 3rd category I mentioned was the initiator. The idea may be a little fresher to you than the 2 I've already mentioned. But this occupies a distinctive social role. This is a very much more public role that John has occupied over the course of his career. You're negotiating, you're making something new in presenting art in an open public space to an unknown audience. And I'm going to talk a bit more of John's role in that. So let me start with John the artist. And where better than in the splendid context of his work, which we can echo on. In 1944, John was a student at Canterbury College of Art, 17 years old. The war just coming to the close. And he then had to spend, as most young men at that time did, in national service. And he spent 3 years in a non-military role through his conscientious objection that he served his country in that role, non-militaristic, and he served in Austria and other places, but in Austria, one of the most important things of his life, the most important thing of his life, he met Gretel, and they fell deeply in love and were eventually married in 1949. And then at that time, John enrolled at the Slade School of Art in London. He spent 4 years there, with the likes of William Coldstream and others of that vintage. But one of the things he discovered at Slade, and which left this great triumph with him for the rest of his life, was the art of drawing. Drawing became absolutely central to his being, and still is. His lifelong belief upholds drawing as the absolute, this is his word, the absolute bedrock of a painter. The bedrock of any visual artist, the bedrock of anybody entering into design. And it's still true, albeit it's gone into lapse occasionally, and you'll see people who claim to be artists who can't draw at all. I'll leave you to work out who that might be. But look at the charcoal drawings, and they're just a tip of this man's production. Thousands of drawings, and you're seeing half a dozen. The drawings in charcoal. Beautiful things. But also, as you take in those drawings, I'd like you to take that little memory stick with you and go to the paintings and let your gaze go into the painting, and you will recognize in there the same values that he used in drawing. They're there in the structure, in the expression, and so on. In his own words, John declared this love of drawing many times, and how the art of drawing, observing, analysing, describing, inventing with nature became part of him, and how he, as the artist, became part of that same nature. And these are his words, not mine, a unification. He's called this the oneness of creation. Nature, artist, one of the same. Magic. And this interaction is intensified in his paintings. And I think you'll pick that up as you go through and look at those paintings. And also you'll be picking up this extraordinary array of subject matter that John has indulged with. And it's the subject matter which his love of open landscape, of animals, of people, his family, his friends, domestic scenes, as well as those objects we see day by day. All of which he has always painted directly in front of the sun. This is not a memory painter, this is a painter engaged with the real thing. It's that love that he expresses through fresh and what I call honest colour means that John's paintings are celebrations of a particular time, a particular space, a time of day, the times of day, the shifting seasons, whatever they may be, mountain air, tropical primaries, or temperate tones, whatever it may be. But this artist was never confined to daylight alone. And through the art of drawing, he continued working through the night. And these are his words again. Painting by day, drawing by night. The man was going almost 24 hours a day. An extraordinary, that's what an artist should be. But refreshing and very spirited encounters each time. Even in the slightest, smallest of drawings to the grandest of paintings, it's the same magic. So I want you to be able to look at those paintings, see the drawings, and let the drawing through the painting and the painting through the drawing reveal itself to your gaze at each picture. Don't take a theory from me or anybody else. Absorb the picture for what it is. Let your own reflections go into the picture, and that's art. That's the chrysalis of art. That engagement. It's not to do with intellectuality, it's not to do with clever ideas, it's to do with that engagement. If that engagement is there, revel in it and enjoy. So that's the man as an artist. A few words about the man now as a teacher. Gretel and John married in 1949, moved back to Kent, established their home in Folkestone, where their three sons, oldest Bernard and Christopher, were born and raised. The perfect unit. John started teaching at Folkestone School of Art in 1951. Folkestone School of Art was then one of the illustrious art schools of Kent. And it may come as a surprise to some of you to know that Kent once had almost 25 art schools like Folkestone School of Art. It may come as a bit of a shock and a realisation to know Kent has no art schools now. It has unis, it has all kinds of funny colleges and things, but the art school, and those of you who ever went to an art school will know what I'm talking about. Yes. Very magical, very special places. And he took over at this art school in Folkestone, and he became the head of what we then called the pre-diploma, and then became known as the foundation department. And he built it up, it became the biggest department in the school, preparing students and artists and designers. But at the key, and here I go back to our dear John, the key to that teaching were the same values that he was using in drawing and in painting. It wasn't a question of putting one off on Monday and picking it again up on Thursday. It's the same man, it's the same values. So through all its various forms and materials, drawing was the principle through which all of his art students learned to become artists and designers. And John occupies a formidable place in the history of the Folkestone Art School. which I have to put a little plug in, is fully told in my book, The Art Schools of Kent, which are available at the desk. Anyway, forgive me. In my researches for the book, I like to share one anecdote with you. And that is, I discovered an extraordinary man who was a master of the Folkestone School of Art in 1890. His name was Theodore Dalgleish. He had been taught by Lagros at the Royal College. He was also in Paris. This was a refined man, an artist, who left a whole suite of etchings to the Kent County Council. And when I started to look for Dalgleish's etchings, they were no more. I wonder where they've turned up. So if you go out to dinner and you see them on the wall, you might make them cry on my behalf. Anyway, those of you who've been art teachers or know the art school scene from past will know the sort of engagement that we would have to regularly have with inspectors and rationalists and the skeptics who would come in and say, what on earth are you doing? What's all this all about? Well, here Theodore was confronted by a group of inspectors in the 1890s, and again I give him the full quote, and they were putting all kinds of pretensions to him and all the kinds of things he should be doing, and he turned to them with a rather tired look in his eye and he said, the only reasonable job for any art school was to teach students to draw. That's where Dalgleish left it. He said, I can do it all from there. I can teach them about the Romans, I can teach them about geography, I can teach them about, and I'll do it all through drawing. Magic. And this man followed in that same step. And Dalgleish and John, you were one, spanning 120 years. Anyway, that wonderful institution, the art school, was eventually curtailed by so-called reformers who moved in and killed off, I call the great cull of the Kent art schools. And where Kent once had more art schools than most rural counties, ended up with virtually none. And when the demolition squads moved in 1971 in Bouverie Road, where the art school was, a lot of the people from the art school did turn up that morning to see the hammers coming in and the demolition. And again, John confessed to me very early on that he didn't have the stomach to go and watch it happen. The art school meant so much to him. However, his energy as an art educationist, and bear with me, I'm on my last page now, is the other dimension of John I want to talk about, and that is John the Initiator. And this may need a little bit more explaining. But those of you who know your town well, you will know that in the early 60s, the abandoned Metropole Hotel was bought by Gerald Glover, property developer. And he approached John and said, I want you to build me an art centre, a gallery, in this place, in this massive great building. And John took it on, worked with the planners, supervised the entire conversion, and out popped the Metropole Art Centre and the new Metropole Gallery. Through this gallery, John presented a whole set of exhibitions, multiple art forms, musical events, whatever. A great success. And he got for his president Sir Kenneth, later Lord Clark, of civilization, fame, and Saltwood Castle. What a powerful ally. And between them, these two put the Metropole in the stature that it deserved. And it became one of the most renowned non-metropolitan galleries in the whole of the south of England. What an achievement. Following the closure of the Folkestone Art School, John developed an alternative up at the Metropole, and by the early 1970s, he had 1,500 part-time students working in the Metropole. Again, what an achievement. He initiated all these terrific shows that were going on as well at the same time. And throughout this time, John met and exhibited a whole stack of Australian artists, amongst them Sidney Nolan and Arthur Boyd. And in 1984, John and Gretel decided to go to Australia. And they went in 1984. And here John applied those same three characteristics which I've been talking about: artist, teacher, initiator. And with renewed vigour into the School of Creative Arts at Wollongong University in New South Wales. In addition to his faculty teaching, he initiated and created the Long Gallery, which became a major feature of this new university. He was then made a fellow and received a doctorate in creative arts. Not bad, eh? And throughout these years, the most important aspect of John's life, he did painting. Lots and lots of painting and drawing. Around the sun-filled Wollongong landscape, the juxtaposition of the industrial sites, you'll see some of those over there, and further afield into the bush, the rainforest, rivers, isolated lakes, billabongs, exotic birds, wild animals, and bushfires, the Australian experience. And then in the last 2 years, while they were there, he did further work on similar themes in North Queensland, and where he was made a professional fellow of the James Cook University. Just to give you a little lightness after all this absolutely warranted praise, let's see this sort of the other side of John. There was the biggest impact that Australia had on John were the exotic birds. Australia had the most wonderful bird life, and John wanted to paint it. And anyway, he had an extraordinary encounter with one cockatoo. And he was in a wildlife park in out of Australia somewhere. And he was sketching away these birds. And he noticed a cockatoo on a railing just level with his head. Beautiful bird standing there. And John was admiring this bird, and eventually, in being the polite pommy that he was, he sort of edged closer to the cockatoo and cooed at the bird. And he told the bird, "What a beautiful boy you are." At which point the cockatoo turned around and in the broadest Aussie told him to bugger off. Which he and Gretel eventually did, not for that reason, but they left, and they came back to England in '94, and I'm now going to close. We're celebrating a very, very gifted man. You know that, I know that. The artist, the teacher, and the initiator. And while researching the Kent Art School over those many years, I met many of John's old students from the 50s and the 60s who attest to his teaching personality, the energy that he played in their lives. That's a record. His achievements as an initiator and organizer in the public realm are now part of the Folkestone Australian history. But above all, and informing everything this man did, is John the artist. A prolific artist, and one I trust Folkestone will come to recognise afresh. And with that confident hope, it gives me the greatest pleasure to declare it.
you.